can interpret dreams. But tell me your dreams, and God will give you an answer of peace. Well, he began like this. I was standing by the river, and 7 cows came out, fat and handsome, and they were dining on the reed grass. After this, 7 other cows came out. They were gaunt and ill-nourished. And the gaunt cows ate the fat cows, and yet they looked the same. And then he continued. I had a second dream, he said. And in this dream, 7 ears of corn came up on one stalk, plump and ripe. After this, 7 other ears came up. They were withered and scorched by the east wind. And the 7 scorched ears ate the 7 plump ears, and yet they looked the same. The 2 dreams are one, I said. The 7 fat cows and the 7 healthy ears of corn represent 7 years of plenty in which the land will produce crops in abundance. These will be followed by 7 years of famine. God has given this dream in 2 forms because it is firmly established and it will soon come to pass. I suggested to Pharaoh that he find a man discreet and wise and put him in charge to appoint officers to take up a 5th part of the grain during the years of abundance to sustain them during the years of famine. Well, Pharaoh turned to his advisors and he said, can we find a man such as this in all of Egypt, in who the Spirit of God is? And then he looked at me and he said, who can be as discreet and wise as you, whom God has given this interpretation? And then Pharaoh took off his signet ring and he placed it on my finger. He arrayed me in fine linens and put a gold chain around my neck. He said, I was to be governor of all of Egypt. Only in matters of the throne was he to be greater than I. He said my name was to be Zaphanath-Paneah, and he gave me the lovely Asenath to marry. Do you understand? One moment I was a prisoner, and the next moment God elevated me to the status of the second most powerful person in the world. Well, I rode in the second chariot behind Pharaoh, and all the people in the land bowed down to me. Well, the 7 years of abundance began, just like God had said. And Asenath blessed me with 2 fine sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And then the 7 years of famine began. And people from all over Egypt and other lands too came before me to buy grain. Then one day it happened. Off in a distance I could see a small band of men approaching. As they got closer, I could count there were 10 of them. And then as they got very close, I recognized them. It was my brothers. I needed time to think. I decided to conceal my identity and speak to them through an interpreter. Then as they came right in front of me, they all bowed down, just like in my dream. They said, we are 12 sons of one father back in Canaan. And the youngest, Benjamin, is with our father, and one is not. Well, I accused them of being spies. And I had them locked up for 3 days. I needed time to think. Well, after 3 days, I brought them out. I said, if you are true men, go back to Canaan and bring your youngest brother to me to prove it. And then I took Simeon from them and had them bound in front of them. I said I was going to keep Simeon there as my prisoner until they returned. You will not see my face until you bring your youngest brother to me. And I sent them on their way. Each man's sack was filled with grain, and each man's money secretly restored to him. Well, when they went back to Canaan, they told my father Jacob that the governor of Egypt had spoken roughly to them, and he told them all that I had said. My father was angry. "You have bereaved me," he said. "Joseph is not, and Simeon is not, and now you will take Benjamin from me? You'll not have Benjamin. If anything happens to him, my gray head will be brought down to the grave," he said. Well, eventually, all the food ran out, and Jacob had no choice. So he sent my brothers back to Egypt for the second time. He gave them twice as much money as the first time, and he gave them fine gifts for me. Well, when they reached my house, they came in and I had their feet washed. And when my eyes fell on Benjamin, I was overcome with emotion, and I ran out of the room into my secret chamber and I wept. Then I washed my face and I came back out. We had a fine feast that night, and my brothers were surprised that I had them sit in their perfect birth order, and I gave Benjamin 5 times as much as the others. Well, the next morning I had them send on their way again. Each man's sack was filled with grain, just like at the beginning, and each man's money secretly stored once again. But this time, I had my silver cup hidden in Benjamin's sack. I sent them on their way. In a short time after they left, I sent my men after them. I instructed them to find the man who had the silver cup and bring him back to be my servant. Well, they overtook my brothers, and they searched them from oldest to youngest. Well, of course, they found the cup in Benjamin's sack, and they brought him back to me, and all the other brothers followed. And I told them I was going to keep Benjamin as my servant. And now Judah could stand no more. He asked permission to speak, and he told me the whole truth from the beginning. And he offered to be kept in Benjamin's place. Now I could stand no more. I knew what I needed to know, and I sent the Egyptians out of the room. And then I wailed so loudly I could be heard throughout the whole building, and all Pharaoh's men heard me. "I am your brother Joseph. Oh, do not be afraid or angry with yourself. Come to me. I am your brother Joseph. It was God who sent me ahead to save lives." And then I fell on Benjamin's neck, and I kissed him, and I hugged him, and I wept and wept. And then I did the same with each of my brothers. Now I sent them back to Canaan one last time. I gave them wagons and supplies and fine gifts. Then when they went back to Canaan, they told my father Jacob everything that had happened. Jacob had a hard time believing it at first, but God confirmed it to him in a vision. So now they started back to Egypt for the third and final time. All my family, all their possessions and livestock. When I received word that they were nearby, I had my chariot made ready, and I went out and I met them in Goshen. And I saw my father, and I ran to him, and I fell on his neck, and I wept, "Oh, my father Jacob, my father Jacob." We were brought before Pharaoh, and Pharaoh was pleased for us to stay there with him. But he said we were to live in Goshen, separate from them, because shepherds are an abomination to Egyptians. And even God used this to protect my people. to keep them from intermarrying with these pagans who believe in many false gods. And since that time, God has kept us alive and multiplied us and blessed us until this very day when I speak to you, the fourth generation. And I want to tell you what God has shown me through all this. First and foremost, God will always bring about his perfect divine will. He used me at this time in this place to keep his people alive. And he never left me and always blessed the work of my hands because I loved him, honored him, and obeyed him. I did not give in to the temptations of unforgiveness and revenge, of lust and adultery. And I want to tell you, my children, I want to encourage you, always love God, honor him, and obey him. And remember, he will always bring about his perfect will. I am tired. I must go now in just a moment. May God bless you all, my children.